So, thinking through my process of designing and developing the necklaces, the one of the things that I need to decide is what materials I'm going to be using for the actual outcome, or outcomes, I suppose, because I mean, the fabrics and ribbons and things that I used to do all the experiments, they were basically like all salvaged and materials that I found in the fabric bins at university. But obviously, when I was looking for the materials, I was looking for them with the purpose of, it's for Gothic Lolita. I was looking for specific materials and colours and textures with this in mind. So all of the materials that I have, they are all relevant to the project and the theme. I just thinking about whether they fit into my context and whether they're appropriate and whether that is what I actually want to use. Now, a lot of the research that I did on contemporary jewellery and on street fashion, a lot of the jewellery and what people wear and how people create is by recycling or upcycling other materials. It was very prevalent when I was looking through the contemporary jewelry designers and a lot of their work. A lot of it, they basically use scraps and unvaluable materials and bits and pieces and reuse them to turn them into something valuable as jewelry. And it's almost like the process of doing it is what makes it valuable rather than what it actually is. So I personally, I don't think there's anything for my jewellery. I don't see why this logic can't work for what I'm designing, because value isn't just in material, value is in the meaning, and the expression and the process of making. If you look at Japanese street fashion, one of the key characteristics of it is taking the old and transforming it into something new, or fusing traditional with contemporary. So I feel that if I take these materials that I found and that maybe originally I was just using them for the sake of experimenting with, if I use them for my actual piece, I feel that it captures one of the key ideas of Japanese street fashion, and the idea of the maker and the idea of the maker bringing something new to something old, basically recycling and reusing and reinventing. It's all about reinvention and reinvention in an unconventional way. So I feel that I have decided that for my actual outcomes, what I intend to do is use the actual materials that I've found, because there's value in that and relevance in it, and it celebrates the ideas behind Japanese street fashion and contemporary jewellery. So, and also the kind of outcomes and effects that I've been able to achieve with these materials specifically, the things that I've been able to achieve are very successful, and I like the direction that it's heading in. So if I know that these materials achieve that look, achieve that effect, then why would I not go and use them for the actual thing? So I am going to use these materials. Some of them, they might need tweaking a little bit, which goes on to explaining the process of making the actual outcomes. So when I did the drawings on the templates after I'd done my fabric experiments, it was actually quite challenging, because I'd already been working with the materials. I think I was kind of in the frame of thinking, working from the actual material rather than working from the design and then choosing the material, because the material holds a lot of value, and importance and relevance within this project. So I feel that I got some good ideas from doing that exercise, but I don't think that's the way to go for me. I don't think it makes sense to like sit and come up with a set design from what I've done and try and create the outcome like that. So far I've basically designed through making, and that is what I'm going to continue to do for the actual outcome, which will, I mean, I'll obviously have to experiment some more and modify and refine along the way, but that's the method I'm going to do it, rather than come up with a set design and decide everything from this specific design, because by doing it the way I'm going to do it, it allows for the organicness of like decisions, the organicness of creating the piece, creating the outcome, which once again is what Japanese street fashion is about. So I feel like I'll have a lot more freedom if I do it this way, and it will lead to a much better outcome. So I've already done a lot of experimentation, so I know that I want to use at least some of the materials that I've been experimenting with, the fabrics, and I know that I am going to use mortar pieces, and that whole process I will be using within the outcome, and the same with the pewter pieces. So, and the wool, I will be using the wool. So I have a idea of the kind of materials and processes and some of the components of what I'm going to have. And thinking about all of this, there's so much that I'm wanting to capture and use that I feel that it's not going to be, that it will be quite limiting to just try and compile it all into one piece. So I'll most likely end up making multiple necklaces or multiple pieces from this. I'm thinking probably I'll be making 2 different necklaces. And I've got quite a good idea of the kind of style that I'm aiming for from my sketches, and my experiments is that it will be quite complex and have quite a lot of individual components, and there will be dangling and it won't be like your conventional chain necklace. It's going to be very tactile because the emphasis is on the materials, and very like textural with a lot of different components. And the idea of it will be more elongated, because if it's more elongated, it's not only is it less conventional, but it captures the aesthetic of the topographical, like the vines, and it's just more organic, and it just achieves the Gothic Lolita aesthetic that I am aiming for more. So it's very dramatic, and it just helps to emphasize and celebrate the materials, which is what I'm trying to achieve. The final point I need to mention is that it's the battle of the practicality versus the aesthetics. So, I mean, this has been an ongoing discussion throughout my making, and like I always say, obviously it has to be wearable enough, but the priority is the expression of the theme and the look and the fashion statement. So because the nature of the materials that I've chosen to use, like the pewter and the mortar, the pewter is quite heavy. So if I approach the designing and the making from now like more organically and as I described, then it allows me to, rather than come up with a design that might turn out to be like too heavy or just completely impractical, like because I've like put on too many pewter pieces and whatever. Doing it like this, it just gives me more freedom, because I can play with, oh, what if I add on a few more mortar and pewter pieces, or what if I take off a few? How will this, like, the balance between the practicality and the aesthetic make the difference? So by approaching it like this, I prefer to work like this, and it will help with that aspect. So yeah, it will help me with being able to experiment as I go along to create a functional piece that conveys Gothic Lolita really well and is different and celebrates Japanese street fashion.